All right, today we're looking at your executive summary and the most common errors that I've seen in order to help you not only improve the executive summary, but improve other documents like email number 3 and the handout for your presentation and your, and your visual aid for your presentation itself. So as you're going through this, remember all of these things that I'm discussing apply to other business writing. So if we go forward, I'm going to go fast because business writing itself is purpose-driven. It's concise and it's specific. So let's be purpose-driven, concise, and specific. If you need to go back and look at this later more slowly. So what's an executive summary? For a short report, which is under 10 pages, it would be a single page. How would that executive, who's your intended audience, see it? Well, it would be either printed and attached to the cover of the report, or it would be put at the beginning before you get to the report in a PDF. Now, you always include the purpose because remember, your audience, executives, are always asking why. Why should they care? What is this document? Why are they looking at it? What is it supposed to do? So what do you include? All sections in order so that your executive can look at any of those sections in greater detail and already have an idea about what's in them. What does it highlight? Only the most relevant arguments and data. But it still needs to be a beautifully constructed document. So it takes more time to take 8 or 10 pages and condense them into a single page in some cases than it takes to write the original 8 to 10 pages. Now, who's an executive? Well, I searched for cliched images and look what I found. These are cliched, common images on the internet that are free for everyone to use, and we can see why. But these are my stand-ins for executives, and remember that they are always asking why. So we always want to think about that audience and remember what they care about. So when they look at a document, the first thing they're going to look at is the title because their first question is, what is this? Why did I get this? What is this summarizing? So if it's a summary, what is it summarizing and who produced this? So in the case of an executive summary, I ask that you take away a lot of things that you might assume about APA, and let's think about the audience first. So here's what I might expect. You might have the original report name, and I have that in, I have it here so that you could actually put the actual name. And it's in these brackets, but insert the actual name, put executive summary, and then your name. And then your audience is going to be like, oh, okay, my first question's answered. Here's what this is. What can it look like? It can be centered, it can be left aligned. Try not to make it right aligned. The eye goes to the left or the center, and the next place is the center in English writing. So don't put it on the right typically because that's not where the eye goes first. So if we start off and we have this centered, then I would assume that the next thing I would see is a heading, whatever the first heading is in the document, because you're going to go in order for what's in the document. It'll be an introduction, it might be a background, it might say purpose, but whatever it is, it's going to quickly allow me to see what's in that section. So the headings with white space before them allow me to see what's coming next. Now in this case, what's coming next is not helpful. And this is something I see frequently with students. In the beginning, there was man and woman. So they feel like they need to go back to the beginning of the earth and when it started in order to write anything. Now that is okay in your drafting stage, but you want to keep writing till you get to the actual point, and then you need to be bright enough and aware enough to delete so that you highlight what is most important for your audience first. So all that in the beginning there was man and woman stuff is not as important as this semester UT Dallas decision makers have asked students to test 2 software applications in order to make a purpose. So get rid of all the mess that doesn't contribute to the main point. So here is our main point. Now, concise is great, but specific is also important. So in this case, we've highlighted the most specific information, the important information in this sentence. UT Dallas decision makers, correct English and Grammarly, and a course fee. Why? The decision makers are the people who are in our audience and why we're writing this report in the first place. Correct English and Grammarly are the two software applications that are being compared, so that's valuable. And then the course fee is important because students are going to be paying for this. So you know students and their preferences matter because they're going to be upset if they have to pay a course fee for something that they don't like or don't use or that doesn't actually help them. So now we have an overview of the report itself. That's fine. That usually works well. You can have that. You might not have it depending on what comes next or whether you're trying to cut words. Now, in this case, someone has, these are the first two paragraphs of a report. Notice that both of them are less than 8 lines long. We want to always have paragraphs that are less than 8 lines long if we're trying to give an overview of any sort of, or any sort of summary, because you're going to clump important information together. Now, the second paragraph, tests and surveys, it addresses 3 things, so why not make it easy to skim? So if I look at this, I can break it down into my 3 things, right? And I can break that down further and make it more valuable by giving those 3 things in short phrases. So three ways it was tested: assignment feedback, student interface testing, and student satisfaction survey. I can glance at this, not have to read very much, and immediately understand what happened, right? And I have an explanation. Now, is this explanation a little too lengthy? Yeah, it could be improved. So I can take a B explanation and make it more of an A explanation. And why is this better? Well, I'm giving the specific details for the testing, how many people, how many assignments, how extensive was this testing, but I'm doing it in a more concise way. So some of you always, will ask, what's the difference between a B and an A? Because sometimes it's hard to express. Well, this is the difference, right? So you can see this gives the valuable details and it takes away some of the things that don't matter as much. Now, students often ask bullets or numbers. In that last case, I used numbers. Were they appropriate? That's a good question. Why do you use bullets or numbers? Well, you want to draw attention to important information and organize efficiently for your audience. So bullets themselves need to use white space and try to make them short. Follow the 6x6 rule, and that means no more than 6 bullets and no more than 6 words. Now, some of you have tended to use paragraphs, and I use that format because that's what the example from our CMC uses. But I urged you, if you were going to use a bullet next to a paragraph, to begin it with a short word or phrase that you've bolded that actually meets the needs of a bullet. A bullet should be short, so something that someone can glance at and get the whole gist, the main idea of the paragraph. You want to have bullets or even numbers that are parallel, and that means that they're in the same form. So when I say something's not parallel, I mean it's not in the same form, and you want to group related things, like with like, right? So organizing efficiently, I want to have a heading that heads any section of bullets so that I can glance at a heading and then see bullets and know why they're there. So if I see testing and surveys, then I know that the bullets or numbers that follow are going to be the tests or the surveys. You want bite-sized pieces so that someone does not have to, remember I talked about 8 lines or less for paragraphs. Someone should not have to really delve into an executive summary or a handout. This is something they should be able to get the main meaning of pretty quickly. It should be concise. What does that mean? It is short and it is to the point, and it is specific. It uses their best words, and as I said, specific. So when you look at these this list, notice that I begin all the items with the same part of speech. So these are active verbs: draw and organize, tell someone what to do. Think about a lifeguard. A lifeguard shouldn't say don't run. A lifeguard should say walk, because that tells someone what to do. Tell them what to do and don't tell them what not to do. and if you're going to tell them what to do, tell them in order with active verbs. Keep all your items about the same length. Notice these are about the same length. And remember that your audience wants consistency and uniformity because they want to be able to work with this information and know what to expect. They don't want big surprises. The big surprises should be the thought or the information itself, not the formatting necessarily. So think about branding and your industry and what they look for and what they value and how their work tends to appear. So you should be reading and looking at people in your industry and what they do and how they do it and what they talk about and the word choice that they use. Because in your industry, when they look at a document and say, is this professional, is it useful, concise, and polished, they're going to apply what they know of the industry, and they're going to apply it to you. Are you professional in that industry? So why use bullets? Well, for the same reasons that are listed here, but notice that polish extends to keeping everything the same. So end all your items the same. If you have a complete sentence, then every bullet's going to be a complete sentence. So rule number 1, use bullets if all items in a list are equal. When you're asking the question bullets or numbers, remember numbers show chronology or sequence. They also show priority or importance. The most important thing we want to accomplish is number 1. Second most important. So use numbers to show that sequence or importance. There's a rule. Rule number 3, use numbers to refer to specific points quickly. So if you can't follow the 6x6 rule and you have this long list, then start delving into numbers so that you can talk about these in a meeting. Numbers 8 through 10 are the numbers that we are going to blah, blah, blah. Okay. And number 4, eliminate repetition when bullets all begin the same way. This is an issue I see frequently with our class. So, what begins the same way in all of these bullets? Well, the bullets themselves, the software. So how do we make this better? This is okay. This is a C or a B maybe, but how do we make it better? We take away that repetition. We focus on the most important points and limit. We ask ourselves, what's the same about all these and what's different? Well, we have an active verb here and the rest are nouns. So that's a problem. But even greater, how does this apply? What is the relevance? Well, these are all disliked elements. Resembles Microsoft Word necessarily disliked? Well, no. That is more an observation. So let's keep these 3 and maybe find the disliked elements. If these are disliked elements of correct English, find the disliked elements of Grammarly and put these side by side, maybe in a table, and suddenly we have something really valuable that someone can glance at. So if I'm looking at the executive summary from the very beginning, this is what I see. And then originally, notice I had these tests and surveys and I improved them this way. So I have headings and I have paragraphs where applicable, where necessary. And now I'm going to turn those numbers into bullets because I think, okay, these are all the same sorts of things, right? Maybe it doesn't matter. Is the assignment feedback more important than the student satisfaction survey? I don't know. Is the timing that important? I don't know. These all seem to be similar ways that I tested it. So now I'm going to look at my next section, results, and I'm going to organize with the data and the most important data. I may have to have a simplified chart, and this might be what I show in my visual aid, whereas I have a more complete chart that gives more examples on my handout. So if I'm doing a presentation, then I might show this on my screen, and then the person viewing it will have a more complete version that gives some examples of the types of errors if I can't get into that in full. So as I look at my tests and surveys, though, and I look at my results, I'm going to mirror the organization of the tests and surveys section in my results. So I'm going back and forth between 2 sections of that single page, and now here is my tests and surveys data, and I have this organized into 3 italics sections. Bold comes before italics, so bold is more significant, italics is slightly less significant, good for subheadings. And so now, bold and slightly larger font. So now I have my explanation of the interface testing, and then maybe my data or the most significant data. And now I mirror my setup in the last section, so I'm going to give that feedback. All right. So what's missing? Well, I don't have the relevance. Now, if it's in my report, I don't want to hide it. In your executive summary, you're still going to give the most significant information. So, I am probably going to answer that question for why this is important right now and have a section, here's my data summary and here's my significance down here at the bottom or right immediately afterwards. And I would want to probably either have that in all my sections or make sure that my report and my executive summary itself include that. So remember, your audience is asking if you're a professional, and they're asking why, and you want to answer that question. Yes, I'm professional. Yes, this is relevant. Yes, this is consistent and it meets your expectations. And yes, this is important for the decision-making process. All right, so as I grade your work, I am going to go through these 5 areas and ask these questions. For relevance, I go to purpose. Does this meet the purpose? Then I look at appearance. Is this consistent? Is this uniform? And is this professional? I look at organization. How can I quickly glance at this and get important information? Is it easy for me to find? Many students ask when I talk about methodology what it is. It's about integrity. Is this information valid and reliable? Well, if you make a particular brand of toothpaste and then you tell people 4 out of 5 people like the taste of this and prefer it over a different toothpaste, and I say, why? Remember, why is that critical question, and you say, because I asked 5 people and 4 of them like this toothpaste, well, that's not valid and reliable. So you want to be aware of that, but you want to know why it is valid and reliable that you talk to 5 people. Well, these are 5 students who use this software at UT Dallas. They're in a variety of majors, and I see a trend happening. So what are trends? Students ask me that all the time. They are asked to spot trends and they don't understand. Well, it doesn't mean that more people are wearing capri pants. Trends are data or situations that are developing, and you can kind of predict where those are going. So in this case, what will users experience in the future? So if I find a lot of situations in which I get particular feedback for common errors, then I can predict that other students will have those errors. So if you say Grammarly worked well, you know, and you don't give enough data, well, I mean, that's a problematic statement. There's an issue there because it doesn't tell me very much. It worked well for me, okay. I need that specificity. So you can say it was easy to understand, and if you're a typical UT Dallas student, then I understand a little more. You could work with it easily. But that doesn't tell me enough either. So let's think about your industry and let's think about the technology. Why was it easy to understand? The interface was intuitive. Well, what does that mean? The interface is what the software looks like when I look at the screen. And intuitive means I immediately understood how to use it because it resembled something else I've used. So there wasn't a learning curve. So, you know, these words seem like they're hard words at first, but in the industry itself, they're common. These are common words used in the technology industry, and I hate to say it, but we're all going into the technology industry. We're all going to use software in the future, so you need to get comfortable with words like this. So when I look at your recommendation in the end and I get down to the bottom of that page, I'm going to ask myself, what are the goals of your audience? The reference, you want to reference the purchase committee goals. So think about your executives' goals anytime they read anything. In this case, your executives want to purchase something that will improve student writing during the writing process. So the actual outputs will be better. But it will also alert students to common errors so that they become better writers because they know, I write a lot of run-ons, I'm going to look for run-ons. I have comma errors. I need to think about word choice more carefully because it's hard to fix something that you don't know is a real problem and you can't identify that specific issue. And then we want this software to be perceived positively by students because they're going to pay a student fee. So in the end, your audience determines almost everything about your document. What your audience expects, who they are, and the why questions that they ask should drive your own business communication creation process. So I hope that this has helped. Think carefully about what you do, and if you have questions, ask me. I hope that this has been helpful. Bye.